Welcome and thanks for joining me for the Gut Health Turnaround Series 2.0. 21 ways to heal your gut, reclaim your energy, and look and feel amazing. My name is Leah Kline, Health and Wholeness Coach, and I will be your host. Today I'm being joined by Dr. Pamela Nathan. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And she's going to be talking about what we can do today to heal our guts. Pamela Nathan, as a background information, was born and raised in South Africa, where she obtained undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in psychology, teaching, and counseling. During motherhood, her children developed severe allergies and one with life-threatening asthma. Dissatisfied with the answers presented by allopathic physicians, she looked out of the box for additional educational options. At Lindlar College of Natural Therapeutics, she earned a doctorate in homeopathic medicine. She also studied yoga during this time and became a teacher. She initiated into the practice of transcendental meditation in 1973 and has been meditating ever since. After working with the California Clinic of Preventative Medicine that was located in Del Mar, California, she continued her studies and in 1986 earned a certificate in Oriental Medicine and is licensed and practicing acupuncturist. Together with Dr. Igor Emanuel, MD, they pioneered their holistic approach to patient care at Ecology Medical Clinic in 1984, long before anybody was at all aware of the importance of ecology with regard to our healthcare needs. In 1984, she transitioned to starting up her own clinic, Ecology Health Center, providing a variety of alternative healthcare options for patients. For a decade, she taught at PCOM, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. In 2014, she brought her own unique line of products to the market with the brand name Perfect Pass Vitamins. Today, Pamela loves serving clients from all around the world via her website, goodgutsolutions.com. She is proud to acknowledge that she has interacted with people in 78 different countries. In her spare time, loves practicing yoga, painting, photography, travel, and hiking. So that was a whole lot of information there. But to get us started, I understand that you've been involved, obviously, a very long time in holistic medicine since the 70s, way before most people knew what holistic medicine was. Can you give us some more details of how that happened?
Yeah, well, thank you, Leah. I think for every 10 years, I accumulated another part of my credentials. So, yeah, it takes a long time to say it all. So, you know, to start off with, my son, who at the age of 2 had really bad allergies, he was really my teacher. And it was as a result of the inability that I got to resolve, you know, his condition other than antibiotics for maintenance, steroids, you know, anti-inflammatories. The first moment he, you know, his nose was running, he landed up in hospital. It was not the method that I wanted to be, you know, bringing my kids up. And so that's the reason that I looked out of the box. And fortunately, I was led to homeopathic medicine, which worked like a miracle. I couldn't believe that little green drops. You know, I said to the practitioner, his name is Dr. Phil Sherwin, and I was in South Africa at the time. And I'm like, one time we had a crisis, and I said, what must I give him? And he said, give him this D43, go to the pharmacy and get it. And I said, okay, you know, how do I do this? And he said, give him 10 drops. I said, how often? He said, every 5 minutes. I said, for how long? And he said, until the coughing stops. I'm like, what? I ran off, got the drops, came back, you know, gave it to him every 5 minutes. And sure enough, I mean, after a half an hour, the coughing stopped. So it was really within the actual physical live experience that I got converted. You know, it was like, how does this happen? You know, how can I be doing this instead of steroids? And that's how it all began.
And now that you've been living in the United States since '79, what was happening in the field of holistic medicine? How did you become involved in that community then?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question because, you know, here I was a certified homeopath in South Africa, and I came to the States to find out that there was, you know, a very vague gray area about where homeopathy fitted into the bigger picture. So, as luck would have it, 3 weeks after I arrived, I was walking downtown San Diego, and there was this little notice in a store that said homeopathic conference in La Jolla, and it was like in 2 weeks after that. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like, you know, God's gift to Pamela, you know.
Yeah.
So off I went to this conference that was, you know, in La Jolla, and I was amazed because here was this little subculture of people, and it was a medical group because homeopathy was regarded as a medical practice. And so I was fortunate to meet Dr. Jackie Wilson, who is a homeopath, and she and I became great friends. And as a result of me knowing her, I was introduced to the whole, you know, homeopathic community. And so as time went on, I started teaching homeopathy, and then I became very aware of acupuncture and found that within the acupuncture license at that time, it was possible to practice homeopathy. So I thought, yay, this is the way I'm going to overcome not being a doctor, but having this knowledge and finding a way that would be acceptable to, you know, just in terms of certification, in terms of what it is that I need to do. So as it happens, since then, the acupuncture group have had to really struggle to get their needles certified. You know, they've had so many more challenges than to incorporate homeopathy into their license. You know what I mean? It was only a priority for me, but not necessarily for them, you know?
Yeah.
So I was actually employed by the California Clinic of Preventive Medicine to work with a doctor who was given the responsibility to be treating his patients holistically. So even though he didn't know homeopathy, acupuncture, allergy management, nutrition, he surrounded himself with all of these practitioners, and collectively we were able to provide a holistic approach. And that was how I started integrating into the holistic community.
Okay. Yeah, it gets complicated. Figuring out how to work everything out and keep everybody happy. So you actually started your original website, which was Crohn's.net, back in '98, which is like the same time Amazon started, and the early days of the internet. That was obviously a long time ago for an e-commerce site. How did that come about?
Yes, that's absolutely true, Leah. I mean, when I think about it now, I can hardly believe it. But so what happened for me with regard to cyberspace is that it was actually a hobby. What happened was that I met Jordan Rubin, who was the founder of Garden of Life. And so at that time, he was a young man who had literally nearly died from Crohn's disease. Yeah. And it was as a result of a very rigorous holistic nutritional program that he embarked on that he got better. And so it was fascinating to me to meet him And at that time, Primal Defense, which was the one probiotic that he was using, together with the specific carbohydrate diet, prayer, and change of attitude, specific, you know, I mean, just in general principles, those were like his basic things of how he got better. And so it was truly as a result of his experience of how beneficial Primal Defense had been in his healing that I put his story onto a page. I didn't have a shopping cart. I had one product, Primal Defense, and his story. And that's actually how it all began. And so then as he evolved into creating different products that were supporting his program with regard to green food and essential fatty acids and, you know, compounding the picture of what he really created, which was not just Primal Defense, even though that was the main ingredient. So that's how it began. And then there I was, and I started with one product, and now I have 300.
Big change.
It evolved. And now I do have a shopping cart.
So now you're calling yourself Good Gut Solution. And what was the reason behind your, changing the name?
Well, as I said, Crohn's.net evolved out of Jordan and his story, and it really was specific to helping people with Crohn's disease and colitis manage their symptoms. And of course, the longer I stayed around, the more I accumulated people asking questions who had all sorts of digestive problems.
Yeah.
The reality is that when you're involved in this area of treatment, it becomes very evident that just about everybody who's having any type of digestive condition requires a very similar treatment, basically. Of course, you always have to individualize, which is like back to my homeopathic background. Each person is an individual.
Yeah.
But in terms of looking at diet, looking at supportive nutrition, looking at stress, all of those things, it doesn't matter that it's just Crohn's and colitis. It can be diverticulitis, it can be gastritis, you can just have constipation, stomachache. It doesn't really matter. And so it felt like the Crohn's.net name was being very restrictive in terms of what we were really offering. And that's the reason that we, rebranded to Good Gut Solution.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. I kind of started out niched a little bit towards IBS and then ended up, branching it out to other digestive issues and kind of expanding it out from there because it's like the stuff was, related to both. Or however many, not just two.
Exactly. And the reality is that IBS, you'll read the articles now that are currently online about how many people get diagnosed with IBS, but meanwhile they have IBD, irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. Well, it's different in terms of how serious it can be. And then vice versa, same situation, And the most recent research, even coming out of Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, is that they are looking to be able to categorize the people that get diagnosed in a way that not everybody gets treated as if they are very severe and require biologics. That they're looking towards being able to strategize this group serious, we're going to do A. This group, B, not so serious, we're going to do less invasive therapy, and so on. And now, think about it. Here I was talking about the specific carbohydrate diet in 1998, and now they're finally doing research to show its benefits. So, the fact that they're even coming into that idea of recognizing, they say pretty adamantly that diet's not going to cure IBD. Okay, but doesn't it help? Yes, it does, you know.
Yeah, there's always some issues lots of times there, or things where they have to watch out for particular like foods or taking care of themselves and stuff. But when they do those things, they, aren't, they're asymptomatic, so to speak. They're not really experiencing all those digestive issues anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you know a lot about probiotics and you've been around those for a long time. I also would like to hear a little more about prebiotics and how that's different.
Okay, well, you just opened the can of worms. No, seriously. So yes, it's true. Probiotics has been my area of interest ever since the beginning, because here I was with Jordan's product. It was very different at the time because it was a soil-based organism.
Yeah.
People were actually scared to take it because it was like, they were eating dirt. And yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to even look at that, right? So from the get-go, my focus was on probiotics, and it has been all this time. And even if when you visit my website, you'll see that the product that I have the most of are a variety of different probiotics that I've been very selective about, because I really only want to be using products that I have experience with and that I get good results. But so over the years, they would have a yearly probiotic symposium that I would attend. And I mean, that's probably about, say, the last 7 years or so. And latest research, I was always keeping up to date with everything that I needed to know about probiotics. But in that time, not that prebiotics didn't exist, but they were kind of like secondary to the bigger picture, because we were so focused on probiotics, probably because we had a certain understanding of what we thought we were doing, which now, since the Human Microbiome Project research, we found out that in actual fact, all the stuff that we ever thought was true is not really true. And so, and I'll go into that, in a little detail, but right now I know your question is about the prebiotics, so let's stay with that.
Yeah.
So point being that as much as we knew about the prebiotics beforehand, very often when it was in a formula, and again, I have formulas where I would have a prebiotic within the probiotic formula, my patients would complain because they would get side effects from the prebiotics. The ones that we used a lot of was inulin and FOS, fructooligosaccharides. Well, when those were contained in the products that, as a formula, as good as they were having side effects, and we never really understood what was going on, and then we would stay away from using them. Okay. So come the Human Microbiome Project research, and we come to find out that in actual fact, the human microbiome, this vast combination of all sorts of species of bacteria, what's there, we actually received in the first 2 years of our life. And so here we were thinking all this time that the probiotics that we were giving people were growing, but they weren't. And what we learned too from the Human Microbiome Project was the way it was that we were going to strengthen this human microbiome was by feeding it. So it wasn't so much about giving additional probiotics that may not even survive to actually get there, but it was more important to actually recognize that what we have, we were given such a long time ago, and maybe it was compromised from antibiotic use and stress and all sorts of different reasons, but the most significant thing was we needed to make it stronger. And the way that we can make it stronger is by using prebiotics. And so the prebiotics actually is soluble fiber that we provide the individual with so that the good bacteria can grow. So what's different now about the new types of prebiotics and the one, that I'm using specifically is that it doesn't ferment fast like the inulin and the FOS. So that's the reason that you don't get these side effects, because that was the problem. So it wasn't that we didn't know that the prebiotics were helping. It was we needed to make it tolerable to the patient taking it so that they wouldn't have side effects.
Okay. Yeah, so that it was reacting so quickly in the body that was, overwhelming the system a little bit on how it could handle it. And
Correct.
got it. So,
and let me just add one more thing. So the other thing that we know about the prebiotics is that they increase diversity. And now, again, what we understand is that the most important thing with a strong, healthy microbiome is diversity. So here we were throwing down lots of lactobacillus and bifidus in huge amounts, thinking that that was the way to go. But that wasn't the way to go, because the thing that we really needed to do is to make all the flowers grow, not just two species, right?
yeah.
And what the prebiotics do.
Yeah. There's a billions, I guess, of different ones in your body and stuff. And so, and there's just no way you can supplement, all of what is really supposed to be in there. And each person is different a little bit, and what is exactly in their body.
Right.
We're not all exactly the same on that level either, besides other levels. But you mentioned the Human Microbiome Project and their research, and they came up with a new definition for probiotic and understanding. How has that changed things today?
I'm pleased that you asked that, Leah, because that's the reason that I said to you that based on what I was ever telling my patients before, I was almost embarrassed to have to say, hey, disregard half of the stuff I told you because it wasn't really true, okay, was based on this new definition. Because the new definition pretty much explains, number one, you have to be giving the product in a therapeutic amount. So if there are 20 trillion lactobacillus in our bodies and we're giving 100 billion, which sounds like a lot, or even 450 billion, it's not in excess of the number that we have. So then it's not really a therapeutic dosage, right? The second thing is that it needs to survive the stomach acid 100% of the time. They don't. And that's the reason that we would be giving these very high doses of lactobacillus and bifidus, knowing that the largest percentage of it would be dying. And then for the little that ever got there, it's almost, to describe it more accurately, there's an immune response that occurs. But don't get me wrong, it's not like the probiotics aren't helping at all. They are, but not because they're growing. And that's the big distinction now. Because if we want them to grow, then they have to be human strain. They have to be found in nature as a commensal organism so that it's identical to what's in the human body. Well, if anything is grown on dairy or soy or any other substrate, it's not identified as human strain. It's not a commensal organism. So it's not going to actually grow. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned some on the changes that they had discovered on the prebiotic level. Why has some of these changes on prebiotics been so important?
Well, the change with the prebiotic is to recognize which of those prebiotics you can use that don't ferment fast.
Yeah, like
So
the, yeah.
in recognizing what you're doing in terms of, which is basically what we're talking about today, and that is maintaining a healthy gut,
Yeah.
the combination of using a prebiotic that's going to ferment slowly together with a probiotic that you know is going to grow is a much better combination than using a probiotic with, billions of strain that are grown on dairy that are not really going to grow, without giving the prebiotic that's going to help diversify all the microorganisms that are in the gut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So back to the feeding. Back to the feeding of the microorganisms. So I see you offer Genovia Labs and doctor's data stool testing for. Are those things that you regularly suggest to your patients to kind of see what's going on inside?
Good question, Leah. Genova and Doctor's Data both provide a great adjunct to treating individuals. And so that's where the unique presentation of each person comes in, because very often they will present with symptoms that, to me, trigger the thought that there's really a possibility that they will either have overgrowth of yeast, overgrowth of bacteria. That's part of the bigger picture of why it is that they're symptomatic. So those tests are so great because they can be done at home, and the patients can, have the stool kit sent to them. It's a 3-day stool analysis. It gets sent straight back to the lab, and then it gives me additional information on how to go about treating the individual patient, because very often they do have an overgrowth of yeast and an overgrowth of bacteria. And then the greatest benefit of the lab is that not only do they do the testing, but if they find anything irregular, they grow them out. So they will grow them out and tell you which natural agents and which medical agents will be helpful in making those particular bacteria less resilient. So, there are lots of antibacterial products on the market, and you can use oregano and citricidal and Hanalbit and you name it, right? But this way, if you know that berberis is the product that's the highest, sensitivity, then that's the one that I'm going to choose, and that's the way the lab actually helps me to do that. They also offer intestinal permeability, which will show you about leaky gut. And that's something that's rampant in our society now. So that's another good way to evaluate that. They do a lactose intolerant breath test, and they do a SIBO test as well. So all of those things really take the guesswork out of, is it, isn't it? Okay, let's find out, where you're standing, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so where, in all this, talked about different probiotics, prebiotics, supplementation, basically, where does diet fit into it all?
Diet is the basis of life. And they say it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. And I like that, because that's truly, truly the most important thing. And, it's so interesting, because so often, patients will come to me and they're ready to write down all the things that I'm going to tell them they need to take. And it's like, no, what are you eating? Because before, it's like, why go and spend all this money on supplements when basic to what it is that you're putting in your mouth on a day-to-day basis is so destructive. And so I can't stress, enough how important being selective about the foods that you choose and the quality of the food, and the amount of water you're drinking, and you know, that whole concept of, you know, making sure that you're eating a good proportion of protein to carbohydrate to fat, that you're eating regularly, that you're drinking enough water. I mean, all of that to me is basic before anybody really even should consider taking supplements, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even with regard to the ability to choose prebiotic and probiotic type foods, you know, now, and that's interesting because many of my patients complain about the fact that the fermented foods give them a stomachache. and what that means is it's fermenting too fast, you see. So those are the ones that you have to say, no, okay, don't eat fermented foods here. Rather take a supplement that you know is not going to ferment that fast, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Something that's got some coating on it to get it past the stomach acid.
No, so in that situation, it's because it's fermenting too fast. It's when the products are fermented foods, usually it's inulin, and the inulin ferments fast. So that's our first conversation about using a prebiotic that doesn't ferment fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is something that our listeners could do today to help heal their gut?
Well, the first thing, as you said, was diet. Okay, that to me is critical. Okay, and then second to that, I would say that taking prebiotics and taking probiotics that grow will help to increase the strength of their microbiome, increase the diversity of the different species of bacteria that they have. And, you know, we're back to the name, Ecology Health Center, right? Mm-hmm. Our line is healing the environment within. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it means, because it's not just about controlling symptoms. It's about truly looking at that gut lining, the mucosal lining, and using the measures that you can to make that strong. And that's what we want to do. And that's where I feel the prebiotics and the probiotics together, and they call that symbiotics now, to me is like critical.
Mm-hmm. All right. So can you tell us about your gift for our listeners?
Sure. So yeah, I'm thrilled to actually be part of this, and thank you very much for including me. So I'd like to offer the people that are participating a 10% discount for the month of November. I have a coupon code that you can use, Gut Health, all capitals, GUTHEALTH, and that will give them a 10% discount on any product they choose other than the lab tests, which I can't include.
Yeah, those prices are set by the lab, so you don't have a lot of control on that. But, so if someone wants to connect with you again, how do they go about doing that?
Email is great, help@goodgutsolution.com. That's the best way. And
your website, of course, is goodgutsolutions.com.
Right, and it's singular, Good Gut Solution.
Yeah, good. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Pam, for joining me today.
You're welcome, Leah. It's really been my pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Come back again tomorrow for more of the Gut Health Turnaround series.